how to call different actions, okay? And then we'll look at a case wherein 30% of the time, okay, we want a scenario 1 to be executed, okay, and
Right.
30% of the time a scenario 2 needs to be executed, okay, scenario 2,
Okay.
and 30% of the times or 40% of the times scenario 2, okay, and all these
Sure.
scenarios or business flows are there in part of one script only. So how do we accomplish something like this, okay, which is
Yeah.
generic things that we do in day-to-day life, okay. I'm not taking anything which is you know so anything which is not used, to be honest, okay. These are the ones which we regularly used in the real time, okay.
Okay.
And once
Okay.
this is done, we will look at advanced parameter types, okay. So
Okay.
this is what we'll try to do today, and then slowly we'll cover, and if possible, if we have more time, we get into correlation and we'll start looking at different correlations, like regular
Right.
expressions, okay. So
Okay.
first things first, okay. So let's add a script, okay, and let's say this is some e-commerce, okay. So e-commerce, okay.
Hey, how about if we take make my trip for this script itself, or do you already have something in mind?
First, let's explain the concept, and we'll go ahead and record it. Okay, I'm not even
Sure.
going at. Okay,
Sure. Sure.
so
Okay.
business in this business scenario, let's say there are this is your business flow. Okay, that
Okay.
you wanted to script. Okay, so
Okay.
or you would say some people call this as a transaction, some people call it as a script, and whatever they want. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
first you would log in. Okay, then okay you would book a laptop, okay, okay, let's assume, and then uh, book a mobile phone, okay, and then book a desktop, okay. So this is your scenario, and then finally there is a login, okay, and finally there is a login. This is your day-to-day things that you might make, okay. This is your script 1, okay. As far as script
Okay.
is concerned, it's your script 1 which has this particular business, okay. This is
Okay.
your script 1 in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, you could have 10 scripts, 20 scripts, or 30 scripts, or whatever the scripts you have. Okay, so this is your
Right.
first script. So how would you do typically? Okay, so in general, okay, if I have the person, I have to do it. First, I'll create one action for login. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll create an action for book a laptop. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay, uh, then book mobile. Okay, and book desktop, and then logout. Okay, so this
Okay.
is the business action. You ignore it because I have commented it out. So what I will do is I'll disable it. Okay, let me see if there is any disable. No, there is no disable. So we can delete it. Okay, not an issue at a later point of time. Let me comment this one out so that it won't throw
Okay.
the errors. Okay, so you have a login. Okay, which represents the first one. Okay, so you have a login which represents the first thing, and then we have created another action called book laptop, which represents the second flow, and then book mobile for this book a mobile, and book desktop and log. Okay, so this is how you generally organize your script. And now, uh, what people would do is they make this as a main action. Okay, they call this as a main action. You can call it as whatever you want, but typically they call this as a main action. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
then okay, from the main action you call these actions in the way that you want it. Okay, you call these
Okay.
actions in the way that you want it. Okay, so you wanted to call this action called login. All you do is just give the name of the action. Okay, and now if you give the name of the action, this is an instruction to Vugen. It will not consider this as an action. Okay, this will not call this particular action. So to have this main action or this piece of line to call this action, okay, there is a syntax. That syntax is nothing but forwards, open braces and close braces. Now
Mhm.
my vision will be able to understand that this login is not just an instruction, but this is an instruction for calling this particular action. Okay, and you can also
Okay.
see that the color of it changes. Okay, so
Mhm.
and also you have to remember that every single statement or instruction or viewgen with end with a semicolon. Okay, this is the rule of
Right.
thumb. Okay, so it's
Mhm.
just a basic C programming language. My Vusion or LoadRunner is based on C programming language, and C programming language, you know, it ends with a semicolon. That's how you
Mm.
know that that's the end of the
Yeah.
instruction. That's how the LoadRunner or Vusion knows that, oh, this is the end of the instruction. Now let me compile it, process it, and run it. Okay.
Right. Right.
Now, you wanted to first execute book mobile, then book laptop. You can do that. Okay. So book. Okay. And you don't want it to type all of it. Okay. You wanted to see if there is any way my Vusion will show me, what do you say? Okay, show me what all the things which are there. Okay, so for that what you do is you type as much as you could. Okay, like all the way till book, and you do control space. It will show you all the instructions or actions which are starting with that particular sentence that you have given so far. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's say you
Okay.
wanted to call book laptop first. Just double click on it, automatically takes care of it, and then put a summary. Okay, same thing with book laptop. Okay, book mobile. Okay, and finally control space, and then book desktop. Okay, and finally log. Control space log. Okay,
Okay.
so now what happens is, okay, now watch carefully. This is the main instruction. Okay, let me save this script. Now how would Vusion go about and execute these actions? Any idea? Which action will be executed first? Which action will be executed second? You have any idea?
So amongst these actions, obviously, user init gets picked up first by default.
Okay.
Then we come to your main action, which is the just the sequence. Okay.
Okay.
But obviously, when it dips into main action, it will first dip into login and it will traverse the logic towards login.
Okay.
Then it will go to book laptop by itself. Just this, it will follow the sequence that is there in this piece of code. And
Okay.
then once it is done with your main action, it will then come to login again,
Login.
to my knowledge.
That's something that you don't want, right? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Already you're calling it, so why would you want to execute it? So I don't
Right.
want this executed. So how do we do that?
So I think you go to run logic in runtime settings, and you just or either over here also. No, I think just give me a minute. Uh, can you just can you just close that? Huh? Can you just right click on login? Yeah, I think when you say delete action,
Okay.
no, I think delete action would not do the right thing. I think we need to go to run logic only. Run logic.
So in runtime settings, you go to run logic, and then you
Yeah.
you remove all
Uh,
of this.
uh,
You
yeah.
remove it or you delete
Correct.
it from, doesn't mean that you're
Correct.
deleting actual
Yeah, I
action.
remember this vaguely, but yeah, good, good. Okay.
Okay. Who's this Praveen who has been chasing me from this? I don't know whoever it is. And yeah, so this is what usually happens. This is how people organize in the real world the real actions. Okay.
Okay.
Why, Kumar? Why a main action needs to be done, and then why we need to call this? Because you can't always rely upon the runtime settings, go and change it. Okay, if you organize this way, this is completely, you have your grip on how to execute, what to execute, in which flow you want it to execute.
Right.
Okay? So that's only one of the many things you can do. For example, you wanted to execute these things for probably 10 times. Okay,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
what you do is you can put a for loop. Okay, for loop.
Okay.
Okay, till wherever you want. Okay, a simple for loop for I is equal to 0. Okay, I is
Right.
less than maybe 11. Okay,
Hmm.
okay, I plus plus. Okay, now what happens, this piece of code will be executed 10 times over here. Okay,
Right.
less than
Right.
11, right? So maybe 11 times
Yes.
it will execute. So probably I would say
Hmm.
less than 10. Okay, now you
Hmm.
can control the way you want it. Okay, so in whichever way you want it. So this is what people almost wherever I see an expert building a script, this is how he will structure his script. Okay, so
Okay.
this is extremely important. Okay, so
Okay.
this is what the first thing that I wanted to tell you to get started with the script. Okay, and it looks
Hmm.
professional. Okay, now
Okay.
quickly let me go execute. So I need to have some piece of code here. Okay, so
Hmm.
LR output. Okay, and you know all the way till here, you do a control space, it will show you the message. Okay, then you can build this one. This is login action. Okay, I need some piece of code to be executed, right? So I'm writing this
Right.
general output message. Okay, book laptop, book mobile, okay, and book desktop, and finally the last. Okay, so let me go
Yeah.
ahead and say, and then usually when you type something, okay, it is a good practice to compile the script just to make sure there are no errors. Okay, okay. Uh, yes, so you see there is a variable which we have
Yes.
used but we never declared. Okay, so
Hmm.
if it was a load runner parameter, okay, if it was a LR parameter,
Hmm.
okay, or load runner parameter is what I call it, okay, or LR parameter is what I call it. No declaration is required. Okay,
Okay. Can
no
you give an
declaration.
example?
Okay, we'll look into that later. Okay,
Okay.
we'll look into.
Okay.
I'll give you an example shortly. Okay,
Okay.
but if it was a C variable, okay, just it follows the complete C programming language. So prior declaration is required. Okay, prior declaration
Right.
is required. Okay, first let me cover this and then I'll come to this. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
here a completely pure C variable I is. So there is a prior declaration is required and it's clearly mentioning that it's an undeclared identifier I. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
that's a prior declaration which is required. Okay, so
Yes.
typically you can declare it over here itself. You can just say int I, okay, because
Hmm.
I is an integer, so you can just say int I. Now you go ahead and compile it, so it's gone. Okay, but
Okay.
generally but if you declare it over here, it is local to this main action. You cannot use
Yes.
I out of this main action. If you wanted to use I in login, you will not be able to use it. So as
Right.
long as you wanted this I to be used only here and you don't want it to use anywhere else, then you can go ahead and put it over here. But you want this I to be used elsewhere as well, let's assume. Okay,
Hmm.
so the
Hmm.
good practice is you put that in the extra files called globals.h in the global variables. Okay,
Right.
in the
Right.
so this is the general practice a lot of performance testers would use, unless until you wanted that particular variable to be used only in that action. In general, you put all the variables in the global variables so that you are not reusing it and all of the variables are at one place. And if somebody wants to come and change, they know where to find it.
Okay.
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 So
Okay.
otherwise, you're declaring in here, declaring here, declaring here, declaring here. Okay, and then you might be declaring the same name without your knowledge. So it becomes a little bit of a mess. Okay, so
Correct.
unless
Correct.
you specifically need it to be a part of a particular action, you don't want it to use it anywhere else, and 100% it has to be over there, then you declare it in the action itself. Otherwise, you declare it under the global variables in the extra class globals.h. Okay,
Okay.
almost I
Okay.
never saw a reason or never saw generally I never saw a particular reason why you wanted to declare it as a local. Okay, unless there's
Right.
a lot of scripting involved. Okay, so there's a lot of
Right.
scripting. So otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. Everybody will put it over here. Okay, since I've put it
Okay.
over here, again I will compile just to make sure there are no errors. So you see there's no errors detected. Okay,
Okay.
any questions so far, Sandeep?
Yeah. All good. All good.
So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and run it to see how my piece of code is working. Okay. So let me go do step by step so that you clearly understand what is going on. Okay. So I don't have anything to show on the runtime viewer, so there is no point having the runtime viewer. Okay. So hang on, let me disable it. Let me disable the runtime viewer. Okay. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and do the step-by-step execution. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First, as expected, user init is executed because in your runtime settings, that's what you said. Okay. So if you go to the runtime settings, so that's what you have mentioned that you want to execute the user init first. Then it is going to the main action. But from the main action, you're calling the login action. So it goes to the login
Right.
action and executes this login action. As you can see, this is a login action. So execute this piece of code. Then it is going into the for loop. Okay, you wanted to see the value of I, you can see it in the watch. Okay, so you can add I over here. So initially the value is I because that's what you said. So here I is equal to 0. Okay, so now it will go ahead and execute the laptop. Okay, so you can see the output here. This is the book laptop action. Okay, then going into the mobile. So this is a book mobile action. Okay, then it goes into the book desktop. Okay, and then you see the book desktop action. Then it comes back to the for loop. Now you go back to the watch, how it will be, I will be incremented. You said I should be incremented by 1. I plus plus means I is equal to I plus. So I needs to be incremented by 1. Okay, that's exactly what has happened. I is incremented by 1. Okay, now it will go ahead and execute the book laptop, book mobile, and book desktop. Then again it will go back to the for loop. Now I incremented by 2. So like this it will continue. So let me put a toggle point here, okay, and let me do a continuous run so that it will completely execute the for loop and come out of the for loop and it goes to the lookout. Okay, now you see
Okay.
all the for loop is executed 10 times. So the proof for that is over here. Okay, you see if you
Okay.
count this, it will be 10 times.
Okay.
Okay, so and if you
Okay.
want to look at the value of I as well, you see I is equal to 10. Okay, finally it will go ahead and execute the logout piece of code, and you see this is the logout action, and then finally it will, okay, and the
Right.
user end. Okay, this is how
Okay.
people generally organize the scripts. Okay,
Okay. So
so
Kumar, one question.
yeah.
Let's say if between these actions, between book laptop and book mobile, if there is any value that needs to be passed out from book laptop as an output information to book mobile as an input information, can that happen over here? How does it work out?
Okay, so typically you can declare a variable and store it, and since it's a global variable, the value will be stored and you can use it in the next one. Okay, so let's say in the
Okay.
book laptop, okay, so
Hmm.
you have for whatever the reason, okay, so there is a value called J which was updated to 10 or which was updated to 15. Okay,
Right. Yes.
int I comma j. I'm making sure the
Hmm.
declaration is okay. Now you wanted to use this j in your mobile. You wanted to use your j in your mobile. Okay,
Yes.
in this. Okay, so the value of j is okay. Percentile. What do we do? Percentile
D. D.
1. Okay, that's a placeholder. Okay, percentile
Yes.
d is
Yes.
placeholder. Okay, so the value of j is we just say percentile d. Okay, and
Comma J.
okay, yeah. So, okay, now what happens is, okay, now what
Hmm.
happens is this J value will be put over here and you'll be able to see, but you see you're initializing the value of J in the action called book laptop, but you're using that value of J in the action called book mobile. Okay,
Correct.
let's go ahead and
Hmm.
execute. Okay, and here
Yeah.
let's go ahead and execute not 10 times, but let's go ahead and execute only 1 time.
One
Okay,
time. Yeah.
okay, so let's go ahead and see what is the value of, you see the value of j is 50.
Okay.
Okay, are we good?
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay, but there is to further to your question, there is something that we can cover at the later point of time. Okay, let's say there
Okay.
is some confirmation number. Okay, so
Hmm.
randomly I'm thinking, okay, what is that I can
Yes.
teach you?
Hmm.
So confirmation number is an output on the application. Okay. Now you need to capture this confirmation number. Okay. Capture this confirmation number, and that is happening in action 1.
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
for some reason, we need to use this value in action 2. How do we do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So first is how to capture the confirmation number in general. Okay. And then how to use it in an action 2, and you capture this confirmation number in action 1. Okay. How to use this value in action. Okay. So
Okay.
this kind of scenarios, what we will do is we'll put it in a notepad. Later on, we'll look into it whenever we can. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And there is one more thing that you haven't asked, we can cover this. Okay. We wanted to pass all the, let's say you're running this test for 1,000 iterations, 1,000 confirmation numbers came, and you wanted to keep track of all these confirmation numbers. You run a load test in a scenario, you generally switch off the log. Okay. So
Right.
you don't put the log because it will fill up all your LGs. But you wanted to keep track of all these confirmation numbers somewhere. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
instead of confirmation numbers, let me put it this way. Okay. So you created a register. Okay. Register user script. Okay. And
Okay.
the output, it will create, if the registration is done successfully, it will create a username. Okay. It will
Okay.
create the username. The application decides the username, it will create the usernames, and it will print out the username. Let's assume
Yes.
that's the, okay. And you wanted
Okay.
to keep track of all these usernames somewhere. Okay. You wanted to store, or you wanted to put them in a file. Okay.
Right.
Is it possible? Yes. Okay. Let's look at this scenario as well.
Okay.
So, because Sandeep, these are the real-time challenges people face. Okay.
Yes.
So
These are good scenarios, Kumar, that you're bringing up. These are good ones. Sure.
yeah. So how to keep track of all the values into a file, or output all these values into? You already know how to output into a file, or you want me to teach you?
No, I would appreciate if you could take it up. Yeah.
We'll do that as well. Not an issue. Okay. So so yeah. So there is some value which you got in action 1. Since it's a global, you have declared it as a global. Okay. You
Right.
can use
Right.
value elsewhere, anywhere. Okay.
Okay.
But the same thing, in case if you have declared it as a local, okay, if you have declared it as a local, okay, so int, okay. Now let's see what happens. Okay. You see, it's clearly saying it's a compilation error and it will not be able to identify this because
Okay.
the J was declared local to this book laptop, and you are using that J in book mobile.
Correct.
Okay, so this is the
Okay.
reason why you have to declare it as a global in case across the actions you want these variables or the values to be passed. Okay.
Hello. Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so wonderful. Okay, so far what we have seen is how in the real world, the actions will be organized and how you call that from the main actions, and what are the
Okay.
advantages of calling it from the main actions, and a variable declared or a value which is there in one action can be used in another action. Okay, so this is what
Right.
we have seen so far. Okay, now we'll further look into the other things. Okay, so what is this
Okay.
advantage of having this main action like this? Okay, so as I've told you, okay, so we have a certain requirement wherein 30% of the times the script should book laptop, 30% of the times it should book mobile, and 40% of the time it should book desktop. Let's assume
Yeah.
that kind of scenario is there. Okay, which means that if you're running the script 100 times, okay, 30 times it should execute the first action, 30 times it should execute the second action, and 40 times it should execute the
Fourth action.
third action. Okay, so this
Yeah.
is how it should. Okay, that's what it is. So let's go ahead and look at it. So this is possible. This is possible. How do I implement this? So what I do is, okay, I will generate, okay, a random number, okay, between 1 and 100, okay, between 1 and 100, okay. I'll generate a random number between 1 and 100, okay, and if the random number generated, okay, is between, okay, 1 and 31. Okay, 1 and less than 31 is 1 and 30. Okay, if the random number generated is between 1 and 30, then execute the first action, which is Booklet. Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Yep.
okay. Else if the random number generated is between 31 and 60, okay, which is 30% more, okay, then execute the book mobile.
Okay.
Okay, else I need not have to write. Obviously, the random number now generated will be between 61 and 100, which is 40%. Then it will be book desktop.
Okay.
Okay, is it clear? This is
Yep.
what it will be. This is what we are trying to this is how we implement the logic. Okay, you see between
Okay.
1 and 100 it's 30%, 31 and 60 it's again 30%, then remaining will be 40%. Okay, the random
Okay.
number, the probability of coming out with a random number, a particular number is always 1 by 100 if it is between 1 and 100, which means that if you run it with this kind of logic, if you are running it 100 times, 30% of the times it will, the random number generated will be between 1 and 30. 30% of the time it will be between 31 and 60, and remaining 40% will be greater than 60. That's how the random number will be generated. So we are
Okay.
using that concept to actually implement here. Are we
Okay.
clear, something?
So, would this really mean the way it would execute only between 1 and 30, or do we write some neat piece of code wherein, okay, we are talking about a random number between 1 and 30, or would this really work that way?
This is algorithm. We need to implement this algorithm.
Yeah, this is just the algorithm. Correct. That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Logic where my
Yeah, I got your
uh,
point. Yes. Yes.
yeah. So I'm writing
Okay.
it down. First, we understand what we are doing. Then we will complete.
Yes.
Then we will
Yes.
convert that. Okay. Now, first, how
Okay.
do we generate this random number? Let's go ahead and look at this first step. Generate a random number between 100 and 1 and 100. Okay. It is very simple. Go to
Okay.
parameters, create a new parameter. And there was one more question that we haven't taken. Load runner, no declaration. I'll take that question as well. I'll put that in your question bank. Okay.
Sure.
Just that we don't forget, okay, but at the same time we don't want to spoil the flow as well. Okay, so we'll put it over here so that we don't forget. Now coming back to this, okay, so how to generate this random number? Go to parameters. Okay, go to parameters, create a parameter, any parameter. Okay, but here I want to create a random number, give a meaningful name to this number, so I'll say rand number. Okay, I could give any
Sure.
name, but here I'm generating the random number. I'm giving a name called rand. Okay, just by
Hmm.
giving the name, the parameter name called random number, it will not generate the random number. We need to do certain things so that it will generate the random number. So
Okay.
to generate a random number, the parameter type default will be fine. This is the most popularly used one, but here I want the random number. So go ahead and select the random. Okay, now it is asking what is the range. Okay, I want to generate
Right.
a random between 1 and 100, so that's exactly what it is. Then if you wanted 1 and 50, you could have given 1 and 50, but here I want 1 and 100. Okay, and each occurrence,
Okay.
yes, I'm going to use this random number only once in my script, so each occurrence. But in
Okay.
case you're using this variable or I wouldn't say this is variable, this is an LR parameter. Okay, this is an LR
Okay.
parameter. So in case if I wanted to use this parameter 2 times, okay, and 2 times you wanted a different random number to be generated, then you say each occurrence. Otherwise, you just say each iteration.
Okay.
Are we clear, or do you want me to demonstrate this each occurrence?
No, I think I got that.
Okay, so you're saying each occurrence, and once here you have used this rand number. Okay,
Yes.
okay, sorry, hang on. Parameters it won't recognize, so you need to copy this. Okay, control space sometimes won't work for
Oh,
parameters.
and these are the load runner parameters. Okay. I got that. File, random number, and date and all. Okay.
So
Okay.
this is you're using it here, and then again
Yes.
you're using it. That's not the way to use it, but just assume that that's the. So here it will generate another number probably 67. Okay, so this is what
Right.
happens when each occurrence. But had you said each iteration, it will generate only the very first time 50, and you're using this random number any number of times, it will go ahead and use that 50, those many
50
number
only.
of.
Correct.
Okay, that's how
Yeah.
it is. So typically, depending on your need, you can use it. But here, I want it to be each iteration, because once it is generated, and every time it need not have to generate for that particular iteration. Okay.
Right.
Now I have, for each iteration, it will generate a random number between 1 and 100. Okay. Now you see
Okay.
this piece of code is done, so I'm deleting it. Okay. Generate a random number between 1 and 100. Okay. That's done. Now we will incorporate this piece of code. Okay. Or we'll convert this into syntax. Okay. So how do we convert? If, okay, random number generated is what? It is stored in this random. Okay, is
Okay.
between 1 and 100. Okay, so if
Mm-hmm.
it is greater than or equal to 1, or I would say greater than 0. Okay, and random number is less than or equal to 30, or less, I will
30.
say less than 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
if the random number generated is greater than 0, and if it is less than 31, which means that it is between 1 and 30. Okay, then what you have to
Right.
do? You have to call the book laptop.
Book laptop.
Okay, and this
Okay.
one ends with a semicolon. Okay,
Okay.
so hang on one second. Okay, so this piece of code has been implemented. Okay,
Right. Okay.
there is a problem with this piece of code. There is a problem with
We need
this
to do LR eval string for random number.
Wonderful. Okay, you see, compare both the left side and right side of this comparison. Okay, so
Correct.
this is the comparison element. Okay, on the right hand side you have something called an integer. On the left hand side you have something called an LR variable or LR parameter.
Yes.
So you cannot compare an LR parameter, okay, LR parameter with an integer. Okay, so either
Okay.
both sides should be an LR parameter or both sides should be a integers.
Correct.
Okay, and if both sides is an LR parameter, there this won't be applicable. Greater than, less than, equal to, this these symbols are there, right? This
Right.
algorithm comparison
Comparison
statement,
operators.
right? They are not applicable to LR variables. They are applicable
Okay.
to only integers. Okay, so
Okay.
now we don't have any other way, but the only way is to convert this LR parameter to an integer, so that I can compare an integer with an integer. Okay,
Right.
why? Because an LR parameter cannot be compared with an integer. Okay, cannot be compared with an integer. Okay,
Integer.
so both
Mm-hmm.
sides has to be integers. Here this is an LR parameter, this is an integer, but it cannot be compared. So what you have to do? This side you have to convert to an integer. How do I convert an LR parameter to an integer? LR parameter. Okay, how do I convert an LR parameter to an integer? Okay, how do I convert an LR parameter to an integer? Okay, there is no direct way. Okay, we have to use a set of two statements. We have to use a set of two statements, because from an LR parameter to an integer, there is no direct way, or there is no one single function. Okay.
Okay. Can we just write, Kumar, can we just write A to I bracket LR eval string, and then you put random number within it? Is that possible?
Yes, we will do that. Okay. So
Okay.
before that, I'll just cover one more thing. Okay.
Sure.
So that it's absolutely clear to you. Okay. I know you know all that. Okay. So
No. Please go ahead. Yeah.
okay. But there is one thing that I wanted you to tell, because that becomes easy for me at a later
Definitely.
point.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay, so this is the slide which I wanted to cover. Okay, so
Okay.
here you look at this very carefully, Sandeep. I divided the whole world into an LR world in the C world just for the explanation purposes. Okay,
Right.
really don't have something like that. But in a LR world, what I have done is I have only the LR parameter. But in the C world, you have integer, string, float, and other than that, you have a lot of other things. things. Okay, short,
Okay.
big, and all. Okay, but these are the generally used variables. Okay,
Right.
time we have to convert from LR parameter to C variables and C variables to LR parameters. This particular chart will help us. Okay, so here
Right.
I have an LR parameter. I have to convert to a integer. Right, I have an LR
Mhm.
parameter. I have to convert to an integer. There is no direct way. Okay, so if you want to convert an LR parameter to a string, there is a direct way. We can use an LR eval string.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
once you convert it to a string, there is C functions which are there where you can convert a string to a float or a string to a integer. So here I've shown you how to convert to a string to a integer using A to I. A means what? ASCII, which is string, to I means integer. Okay, A
Okay.
means what?
Okay.
ASCII, which is string. TO2
Correct.
means I means integer. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
similarly, I to A is also there. If you have an integer, convert to string, I to A, I to ASCII. Okay, but I to A is rarely used, they use printf. Okay, so here I want to
Okay.
convert an LR parameter to an integer. There is no direct way. First convert to a string, and from string you can convert to an integer. So first you have to use LR eval string.
Okay.
On the top of it, we have to use A to I. Are we clear?
Okay. Yes, I think this is good information, Kumar. You said I to A is also possible, and that is using sprintf, is it? Okay.
Either you can use sprintf or I to A. Both are
Okay.
possible. But sprintf has more power, so people go ahead and use the sprintf. Okay,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I to A very simple. Okay, you can use I to A as well if you want. If you have an integer and want to convert to a string. But here, from LR parameter to a string, by using LR eval string, I convert to a string. And once I have
Okay.
converted to a string, I know how to convert to an integer by using A to I.
Okay. Okay.
Similarly, I have a float value, convert to an LR variable. I can use LR parameter printf. I have a string, I have to convert to an LR parameter. I have LR save string. I have an integer, converted to LR parameter. I have to use LR save.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
LR saving,
Okay.
LR save string, or LR param printf. This is from C world to LR world. Okay,
Right.
integer to
Right.
LR parameter, float to LR parameter. But LR
Right.
parameter to C variables, there is only one way, which is we can only convert to a string. And once we have converted to a string, we can use the power of C programming language to either convert to an integer or something else based on your need.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Great.
first, what we have to use LR eval string. On the top of it, we have to use ATUI. Let's go ahead and do that.
Yes.
Okay. So
Sounds good.
maybe
This is good.
you can
Yeah.
take a screenshot. You can say print screenshot and keep it with you for the future reference. Take a
Okay.
printout.
Kumar, can you just share this file later on? I mean, like the deck that you have, so that it will be good for my reference later on.
That's not possible. What I can do
Oh,
is,
okay.
yeah, what I can do is, hang on. Okay. So,
Okay. No, I'll make your work easy, Kumar. I'll take a screenshot if you want me to do that. Let me do that because I
start.
don't want you to get disturbed while you're doing the work. Yeah.
What I can do is I'll see if I will be able to send this on the chat window to you because this comes very handy actually. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes. Absolutely, man.
I'm not able to send it over here. What I will do is once it is done, send me a reminder. I'll put it in an email and send it to
Fine.
you. Okay,
Fine.
yeah. So what we have to do, as I've told you, first what we have to do, you have to convert that to a string by using LR eval string. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we have to use LR eval and string. This chart, if you are comfortable, right, Sandeep, this chart, if it's comfortable, you can do any damn thing in LoadRunner. Okay, as long as you know C program. Only this
Okay.
chart is what you need to know. Okay, once you
Okay.
know this chart, right, you can do
Right.
any damn thing on LoadRunner as long as you know C. Okay, so if C
Okay.
can do, LR can do. You know, I have something, convert to the C variables and do whatever you want in the C program. Okay,
Wow.
do any
Okay.
damn thing in this programming, and once you are done, move it back to the LR parameters and you can use it in your LR variables. Okay,
Okay.
this is okay. If this chart is clear and you know C programming, you can do hell lot of things, any damn thing. I'm telling you, anything in LoadRunner as long as you are comfortable with C. Okay, this
Okay.
is the
Okay.
simple. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, so LR eval string, as per the syntax, it has to be double quotes.
Right.
Okay, okay. And do you think something is missing here?
A to I.
I'll add it later, but anything, watch carefully, something missing here.
Parenthesis.
Wonderful. So this rand number, what is the rand number? It's an LR variable. And whenever you have to use an LR variable, the load runner or Vuegen cannot identify this load rand number. Okay? If it was a C variable, then you would have declared it over here. You would have declared it over here. Then it will understand. Oh, it's a C variable, rand number. I have to go get the value from there. But this rand number is an LR parameter. It doesn't have any prior declaration, so it won't understand that. So to make the Vuegen understand that this rand number is an LR variable or LR parameter, how would you tell that? By putting this flower braces. Now,
Okay.
my
So this is not required for a C variable, Kumar, is it? For C variable, it is not applicable.
What is this parenthesis?
Yeah, the parenthesis thing, no?
No, you see, we have used this here, right? You see, we have used this J here.
Oh yeah,
Did
yeah,
parenthesis?
yeah. Perfect, perfect. No,
Right,
correct, correct.
you're
My bad.
done. So my Vuegen understands that J is a variable. Not only that, it is of the type integer. Okay,
Right,
so there's no need to tell it that, oh, this is a C variable because it's fairly declared. But
right,
this one is an LR parameter. You see, this one is an LR parameter. Okay,
right.
it didn't do any prior declaration. So you have to tell to the Vuegen that this is an LR variable. How to tell it? By putting the flower braces. By
Correct.
putting the flower braces. Not only here, wherever you wanted to use, you have to put the flower braces, which you will slowly start understanding as in more and more scripting. Okay.
Okay, okay.
So now it is converted to a string. The output of this is what? A string. But this is not good enough. A string cannot be compared to an integer. Now you have to convert to an integer. How to do it? A to I, ASCII to integer. Okay.
Correct.
Now you see the left hand side is an integer, right hand side is an integer, and it can peacefully compare it. It can peacefully
Okay.
compare. Okay. Now same thing
Yes.
needs to be done for. Yeah, this braces is for this braces is for this. Okay. So now same thing needs to be done for this one as
Correct.
well. Okay, do you agree?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now this one makes sense. Now my Vuegen can understand this piece of code. Okay, so we have implemented the first piece of code. Okay.
Okay.
So let me comment out this and let me compile it just to make sure that there is no issues. Okay. Okay, no errors detected. Let me do step-by-step execution just to see this is working. If this is working, then I can implement the other piece of code just by copy paste. Okay.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. First, let me see what is this random number that is generated. Okay. Where can I look it up from here? What is the random number that is generated? How would I know? Where can I watch it? Can I go to watch and say add random number here? Do
Okay,
you
I have
think
not
it
used
will?
this feature, Kumar. I have not used this feature, so good. I
You
think,
see,
yeah.
rand number, it says incorrect expression. This watch can be used only for C variables. It cannot be used for LR parameters. You see, there are
Okay.
two kinds, right? LR parameters and C variables. So this watch
Right.
can be used only to track these variables. Okay, but it cannot
Right.
be used for LR parameters. Okay, then what do we
Right.
do? So this is not tracking. Okay, there should be another way. That's the reason why Vuegen has given another feature called runtime data.
Data.
Okay, you see what is the random number generated? 19.
Okay.
Okay, so 19 is
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
also in this loop. So it should go ahead and execute the book laptop. Let me see if it will go ahead and execute the book laptop. If my control goes into this loop, then this logic is working. Don't you think so? Yeah, you
Yes.
see, it is going into this loop and it's
Hmm.
executing the book laptop. Okay, so my logic is working. Are we good so far?
Yes. Yes. Yes, Kumar.
Now what
Yes.
I'll do, else if, okay, then copy paste this whole piece of code. Okay, again, I don't think I need to explain, but here we just have to say greater than 30, which means that it starts with 31 and less than 61. Do you agree that?
Correct.
Between 30
Yes.
and
Yes.
60. Okay, so it is greater than, yeah, between 31 and 60, that's what it means. Okay, again, I need not have to say if, else if this piece of code. Okay.
Kumar, we
Finally,
also have the ability to use OR operators over here. I mean, like you've used AND, but I'm just saying in a situation wherever needed, we can use all of OR operators with a double pipe. Is that possible?
yes, yes. But
Okay.
here it is AND. And in C programming language, it has to be double AND. Okay,
Acha.
single AND is
Okay.
there. Double AND has its own advantages. Okay, so once this is not satisfying, then it will directly skip this. Okay, that's the advantage of double AND.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Okay.
and means this statement needs to be satisfied and this statement needs to be
Correct.
satisfied, right?
Yes.
That's what is AND.
Yes.
But if you use single AND, it will test this, even though it's not satisfying, it will go ahead and test this as well. That's the problem with the
Okay.
single AND. So that's the reason why to make your code efficient, you use a double AND. Okay,
Right.
and we can use the OR as well if you want, but here we don't want to use OR. Okay, logically you
Right.
want to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the piece of. Are we okay so far?
Yes,
Okay,
Kumar.
book laptop. This is book mobile. Okay,
Okay.
and then this is book desktop. Okay, and we don't want this piece of code. Let me comment this one out. Okay, and obviously you want to log in at the top, right? And then
Yes.
you want. Okay, you need to comment out this piece of code as well. Okay, let's go ahead and execute to see how it is working. So what I will do is, we know if it goes to laptop, it will print this one out. So we know, like, how many times it went into laptop, how many times it went into desktop, how many times it went into this thing. Okay,
Yes.
so let me run this for 100 times. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It will happen quickly. Don't worry. Even though it's 100 times, it doesn't take too much time. Okay.
Mm, okay. I think there is a semi after book desktop ka curly braces.
Okay. So
Okay.
okay. So you see how fast it has executed 100 times. Okay,
Right.
so it happens pretty quickly. Okay, and now let me see how many times book laptop has been executed, book desktop has been executed, and book mobile has been executed. Okay, so any
Mm-hmm.
performance tester, one thing that they need to have is Notepad++. Okay, without Notepad++, you are not a performance tester. Okay, so
Okay.
here I wanted to check how many times book laptop has been executed. Okay, book laptop
Mm-hmm.
has been executed. This comment has should have been there, right? Control
Right.
F, okay, and you just count. Okay, 28 times it has executed book laptop. Okay, it need not, it typically will not be exactly, but it close to 30%, right? So we can take it.
Right.
Okay, and this is book mobile action. Let me see how many times it got executed. Control F and then count. How many times? 39 times.
39.
Okay,
Right.
so mobile is what? How many times you wanted to execute mobile? Uh, Actually, ideally you wanted to execute 30 times, right? But it has exceeded a little bit. Okay,
Right.
and book laptop. What is the final one? Book mobile, book laptop,
Desktop.
book desktop, right? Where is book desktop?
Hmm.
Can't find book desktop. Funny. Oh, okay. We did the same
Oh, the
thing here.
condition is same. Okay. We didn't. That's all right. That's all right. Yeah.
You just have to say else. That's the reason why it was asking. Okay, else it will be book desktop. Now I
Kumar,
can.
just one thing. Over here, the last curly braces before logout, it's ending with a semicolon. Is that appropriate?
I think so because every statement needs to end with a semicolon, right? This all thing starting from here all
Okay.
the way to one single statement for my.
Acha, that way. Okay. Okay.
Not only that, any statements end with a semicolon. Okay,
Okay.
but this whole
if it
thing
was
will
a just okay, so if it was just a basic if statement, Kumar, then the semicolon will come right after the end of the curly braces of the first semicolon. Yeah, okay,
So if this
that's
was only this, then you have a semicolon here, not here, because this is one single statement. Here, the
right.
whole thing is one single statement or one single instruction to my user. Okay.
Okay, okay, okay,
Okay. So this Notepad++ is extremely important. Okay, when you actually go to analysis. Okay.
right.
Uh, hang on. Now it will be right. Okay. Oops. Okay, you go ahead and count it. It is 39 times book laptop. Okay, so book laptop is 39 times. It is little more than what we have expected. Okay, so mobile
Hmm.
action, let me see. Okay, it is 34, and
Okay.
desktop, hopefully desktop has come this time around. Yeah, there you go.
Hmm.
Okay, it is 34. Okay, so it is not exactly what we wanted, but it is close to what we wanted, and this is how people usually implement. Okay,
Right, right.
are
Okay,
we clear?
so Kumar, yes, one question. Let's say if we had the for loop that was below, okay, I think we commented the piece of code. Uh, how about if one action passes, ignore the second action and then execute the third action? For example, let's say there is LR pass, right? I remember that vaguely. I have not really, worked on that kind of a thing. But yeah, if one action passes or fails based on which we execute or not execute the second action, that
Yeah,
kind of a scenario, how do you write that?
I'll write it down. It's very simple. When we do error handling, we will do that. Okay, that's
Okay,
not at all
okay,
difficult. Okay,
okay,
if action one failed, okay, based on that, execute next action. Okay,
yeah,
so this can
okay,
be done using functions called lr underscore exit. Okay, this
okay.
is we'll cover that as well tomorrow. Okay,
Yes.
that's
Can you just share this question bank also, maybe in the email or something, so that we kind of follow up on that. Um,
okay. It's there on the
one
chat.
thing. Okay, great, perfect, perfect. All
Okay.
right.
What I can do
Okay,
is I
Kumar.
can send that screenshot to you right away so that I don't forget. For